They say caregiving is a thankless job, but when it's your own mother, the woman who raised you, wiped your tears, and held you through every childhood nightmare, you don't expect to be thanked. You just do it. At least that's what I told myself when I put my life on pause for her. It started 5 years ago, when Mom's health started deteriorating rapidly. At first, it was just small things. Misplacing keys, forgetting appointments, repeating stories. We all laughed it off as Mom being Mom, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. My sister Claire was too busy to notice. She had moved across the country to chase her career in luxury real estate. Good for her, truly. But it also meant I was the only one around to notice the real signs, the moments of confusion, the forgetfulness that was far beyond typical aging. Eventually, Mom was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's. I remember sitting with her in the doctor's office, holding her hand as the words sank in. She didn't cry. She just looked at me with tired eyes and whispered, "Don't let me disappear." I promised her I wouldn't, and I meant it. Claire called once every few weeks, sometimes less. She always had an excuse: client meetings, open houses, time zones. She'd end each call with, "Tell Mom I love her," and then vanish again. I, on the other hand, was there for everything. I moved into Mom's house, left my job, my apartment, my friends, everything. I became her full-time caregiver. It was a slow unraveling, watching the strongest woman I knew forget how to use a spoon, how to tie her shoes, how to say my name. Some days she was sharp and hilarious, like the mother I remembered. Other days she screamed at me, called me a stranger, or cried uncontrollably in the kitchen because she couldn't find her favorite mug, the same one in her hand. But I stayed. I cooked her meals, took her to appointments, bathed her when she forgot how, sat beside her in silence on the really bad days. And while I didn't do it for recognition, I'd be lying if I said I didn't hope, somewhere deep in my chest, that maybe she saw me, even in the confusion, even in the darkness, that maybe she knew it was me, the daughter who stayed. Money got tight. I dipped into my savings, sold some of my belongings. I even tried freelancing from home. But the time commitment of caregiving left little energy for much else. Claire? She posted pictures of sunsets in Santorini and $5,000 handbags on Instagram. Her captions were all about self-love and chasing dreams. And every once in a while, she'd send a birthday card or a fruit basket addressed to Mom and Meg. That was me, Meg, the placeholder in Mom and Meg. I didn't resent her at first. I figured we all show up differently. But after 3 years of doing everything, managing medication schedules, changing bedpans, cleaning up after nighttime accidents, I started to wonder if I was just the fallback. And when Mom's condition worsened to the point where hospice, nurses started visiting weekly, Claire finally showed up. I opened the door, and there she was. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect excuses. "Sorry, Meg, I just couldn't stay away anymore." I didn't say what I wanted to say. I didn't ask her where she had been during the ER visits, the hallucinations, the time Mom thought the mirror was a portal and tried to climb into it. She stayed for 3 days. Took pictures holding Mom's hand. Posted a story captioned, "Cherish every moment." Then she left again. 2 months later, Mom died. Peacefully. In her sleep. I was the one holding her hand this time, whispering, "It's okay. You can rest now." I arranged the funeral. Claire arrived just in time for the service, dressed in black, crying like she had been there all along. Everyone told me how strong I was, how devoted, how proud Mom must have been of me. Then came the will. That's where everything changed. The day of the will reading, I arrived early. I sat alone in the attorney's office, still numb from the funeral. I hadn't even had time to process the loss, and now I was expected to navigate legal paperwork and estate matters. Claire breezed in 10 minutes late, smelling like expensive perfume and flashing a solemn smile, as if she were playing the part of grieving daughter in a soap opera. Mr. Denning, Mom's longtime estate lawyer, came in holding a thick file. He gave us a soft look, the kind you give when you're about to say something hard. "Before I begin," he said, "I just want to say how sorry I am for your loss. Your mother cared about both of you deeply." I nodded. Claire dabbed her eyes, with a tissue that still had the price tag on it. He began reading the will, and it started off like I expected. A few sentimental words, a note about how she wanted us to support each other, the way sisters should. But then, the words started to sting. To my beloved daughter Claire. She was named first, not a huge deal. But my gut clenched. I leave the house, including all furnishings, the car, and the savings account at First National Bank. I blinked. I waited for the "and to Meg," but it didn't come. Mr. Denning flipped the page. To my daughter Meg, I leave my journals, photo albums, and the music box from my bedside table. That was it. Journals, albums, a music box. The house I lived in, the one I'd kept running, maintained, and cleaned for 5 years, was now Claire's. The car I drove Mom to the hospital in, Claire's. The savings I dipped into because we couldn't afford better care, hers too. I sat there in stunned silence. The room felt like it had tilted sideways. Claire made a soft gasp, then glanced at me with a face I couldn't read. Maybe guilt? Maybe awkward sympathy. Mr. Denning looked uncomfortable. "Your mother made these arrangements about a year ago. She was adamant. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe." A year ago? That was during one of her rare lucid months. She had seemed more herself then, and she chose that moment to leave everything to the sister who lived 3,000 miles away and called only when it was convenient? After the reading, Claire approached me in the hallway. "Meg?" I didn't know she was going to do that. I swear, I didn't answer. She reached into her designer purse and pulled out a small envelope. She wrote us each a letter. The lawyer gave them to me before the meeting. She handed mine to me and walked off. I didn't open it right away. I drove home, her home, I guess now, and sat on the back steps for an hour, the letter burning, a hole in my hand. Eventually, I unfolded it. "My dearest Meg, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And I'm so sorry for everything I couldn't say while I was still here. I know what you're probably thinking, and I know how this must look. Please believe me when I say it wasn't about the money. It never was." I left the house to Claire because I hoped it would finally tether her to something real. I always worried she'd float through life chasing things that didn't matter. She never had roots. You, Meg. You are roots. You were the one who stayed, the one who gave up everything to care for me. And I saw it. Even on the days I couldn't say your name, even when I didn't recognize your face, deep down I knew. It was you. My Meg, I left you the music box because you used to fall asleep to its tune in your crib. You called it your dream machine. I left you the journals because I wrote about you in almost every one. I know this doesn't feel fair, and maybe it isn't, but I hope one day you'll understand why I did what I did. With all the love a mother can have, Mommy sat with that letter for a long time. I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip it apart. But mostly, I just wanted her back. Moved out 2 weeks later. Claire let me stay while I looked for an apartment, which was almost more insulting than if she had kicked me out. She tried to make conversation like we were sisters again. I couldn't fake it. She said things like, "You should have told Mom to update the will," or "Maybe you should have asked for something more." But how do you ask for something you think you've already earned? When I left, I took the journals, the photo albums, and the music box. I didn't touch anything else. I moved into a tiny one-bedroom apartment with secondhand furniture and a leaky faucet. My savings were gone. My resume had a 5-year gap. I had nothing. At least, that's how it felt. Until one night, I opened one of Mom's journals. Page after page, she wrote about me. Not Claire. Me, how I made her laugh even on her worst days. How I brushed her hair while she fell asleep. How she felt safe because I was around. I wept over those words, because maybe she hadn't given me the house or the car. But she had seen me. She had loved me. In the only way she knew how, and that was the moment something shifted. I didn't want to stay broken. I didn't want to be bitter. I wanted to build something, for myself, so I started planning. And what happened next? Well, even Claire didn't see that coming. After weeks of grief and quiet bitterness, I finally found myself doing something I hadn't done in years, planning my life. For 5 years, everything had revolved around keeping Mom alive and comfortable. Now, I was suddenly responsible for only me. It was terrifying, but also, strangely, liberating. I reread Mom's journals late at night, using her words like fuel. One entry stuck with me. Meg always notices the small things. The color of a flower, the way shadows fall on the wall, the smile in someone's eyes. I think that's her gift. She sees the world with an artist's heart. An artist's heart she knew. When I was younger, I wanted to go to art school. I'd gotten into one too, with a scholarship. But when Mom got sick the first time, right after Dad died, I deferred. Then deferred again. And then it was too late. But what if it wasn't? I didn't have much money, but I had time now. And I had an old set of paints still in boxes under my bed. So I started painting again. At first, it was therapy. Messy watercolors, charcoal sketches, half-finished canvases. But something inside me had been quietly maturing all these years. The pain, the patience, the way I'd watched the world from inside a caregiving bubble. It all poured out onto the canvas. One night, I posted a few of my pieces on Instagram, using a throwaway account I hadn't touched since college. I tagged them, show us grief art and each caregiver art, not thinking much of it. The next morning, I had over 300 likes. A few comments, then a DM from a small mental health advocacy page asking if they could share my work. I said yes. That post got shared again and again. Within 2 weeks, I had 2,000 followers. Then 5,000. Artists, therapists, other caregivers, people who said things like, "This reminds me of what I went through," or "You put my feelings into color." Someone even commissioned a portrait of their late grandmother. I charged $75 and felt guilty for taking money. But the woman cried when she got it. She said it felt like having a piece of her grandmother back. That's when I realized this was more than therapy. It was purpose. I applied to a local artist co-op and got in. They let me display 3 pieces in a community exhibit. One of them, 5 Years of Silence, a dark, abstract swirl of blues and grays with a single soft light in the center, sold within hours. For $600, I cried. Hard. Not because of the money, but because someone saw value in the pain I'd carried. Someone wanted to hang it on their wall. I called Claire, still unsure if I should. She answered with a chipper. "Hey, stranger." I told her I'd sold my first painting. "Oh," she said, "that's cute. Like Etsy cute?" I didn't respond. I just let the silence speak. Claire still lived in Mom's house, planning renovations. She kept asking if I wanted to come over to go through some of Mom's things. But every time I went, it felt like I was visiting a museum of my own past. She'd repainted the living room, gotten rid of the recliner where Mom used to sit, even moved the wind chimes from the front porch. One time, she said, "You should think about teaching. You're good at that sort of thing. You're nurturing." Nurturing as if all I was good for was taking care of other people's lives, never building my own. I declined. Instead, I doubled down. I painted every day, built a website, accepted commissions. By the end of the year, I had sold 40 original pieces. One went to a therapist's office in New York, another to a collector in Germany. I started hosting workshops for caregivers, dealing with grief, teaching them how to turn emotion into art. One of the local galleries asked me to submit for their winter show, Emergence. I sent in my latest piece, Inheritance. It featured a woman's silhouette crumbling into dust while another figure grew out of the ashes, golden and glowing. It was accepted. Opening night, I stood next to my piece as strangers came up to me, asking what it meant. Some cried. One hugged me, and then something unexpected happened. A man in a sleek gray suit approached me. He introduced himself as Julian Monroe, an art buyer for a private gallery in Los Angeles. He had seen my piece online. He offered to buy Inheritance on the spot for $10,000. I nearly dropped the wine glass in my hand. I sold it. The next day, he emailed me again. He wanted to commission a full series, 10 pieces, on the theme of emotional rebirth. The gallery would cover materials, travel if needed, and offer $100K total for the series upon completion. I reread that email 15 times. $100,000, more than I'd ever made in my life. More than what Claire inherited in cash. I sat in my apartment, music box playing softly behind me, and cried until my body ached, because it wasn't just about the money. It was proof that I was worth something. Not for what I gave up, not for how much pain I could carry, but for who I was. About a month after I signed the $100K contract, I got a call from Claire. She didn't bother with small talk. So, I just found out from Aunt May that you sold a painting for $10,000? And that some big gallery is paying you 6 figures? I could almost hear her pacing. I mean, that's insane, right? You paint. I didn't even know that was a thing you were serious about. I stayed silent for a second. Not to be dramatic. I just wanted to see what she'd say next. It's just that, she went on, you could have told me. Maybe you still want to use the garage studio here? We could figure something out. And I know Mom left everything to me, but obviously she didn't expect you to, be out there making a fortune. There it was. The twist. I wasn't supposed to succeed. I wasn't supposed to have something she couldn't control. I laughed, not bitterly. But honestly, the irony was too sharp not to. I'm good, Claire, I said calmly. I have my own place, my own studio, and I'm finally doing what I love. No need to use Mom's garage. She paused. Then, well, it's still your home too, you know. We're family. But that wasn't true. That house had never really been my home. It was a place I worked, a place I sacrificed. And Claire? She had been family in name, but not in action. Not when it mattered most. I thanked her for calling, and hung up. That was the last time we spoke directly. She sent a few texts later, mostly neutral, probably half curious and half guilt-ridden. I didn't reply. Not because I hated her, but because she no longer had a front row seat in my life. A few months later, I had my first solo show in LA. 10 pieces, each one representing a different stage of grief and growth. I called the exhibit Weightless. Critics praised the raw emotion and storytelling. A few local news outlets ran a feature. The gallery even flew my pieces to a European art fair. And there, standing beside my art, with people sipping champagne, and quietly crying in front of canvases I once made, while grieving in silence, I realized I had transformed. From invisible daughter to renowned artist, from caregiver to creator, from black sheep to beacon. One piece, called Inheritance Reclaimed, drew the most attention. It showed a woman kneeling, pouring light from her chest into a garden, while a large shadow behind her tried to grab the light, but couldn't reach. That painting sold for $25,000. A woman in her 60s bought it. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You painted my life." She didn't need to explain. I understood completely. Now, every time I get a message from someone who saw my work and felt seen themselves, I remember those 5 long, quiet years. The meals reheated. The nights on the floor next to Mom's bed. The tears I cried in silence when no one else was watching. All of it. Wasn't wasted. Mom might have given everything material to Claire. But I got something far more powerful. Clarity, resilience, and a gift that can't be measured in dollar signs. I no longer define myself by who stayed or who left. I define myself by what I built from the silence, and that That's the kind of inheritance no will can write.